Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Welcome to Let's Create Africa, the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored once again to be doing this with all of you. My name is Ohiga Kemuturi. I'll be your host for this evening, and I have my gracious guest, who I'll get to later. Let me not go into that first, because I'll forget everything else. But welcome to Let's Create Africa, where we talk about business innovation, governance, and the SDGs, and what all that means to Africa, and what Africa means when it comes to that conversation. So I'm here, and we are here courtesy of StartingF, our partners, StartingF, Know Your Rights Africa, the future of work, and Let's Create Africa. So without further ado, I'll get into the conversation. Today, we are talking about wholesome health and wellness for entrepreneurs. I have my special guest, who is Wairimu Githahu. Now, for those who don't know, and for those who know, Nemo teaches from the heart, and she's a teacher, actually, a registered yoga teacher, among many other things that you guys will discover that she is about. I mean, she's like an onion in human form. And Nemo teaches from the heart. While teaching, she connects to her students individually. She begins her classes with techniques, and these are yoga techniques and what she believes in. Nemo has practiced yoga on and off since 2012. She moved to Shalalamu in 2016, where yoga is a way of life for many, and her interest grew from there. Nemo's background is in mental health, as a mental health practitioner, where she specialized in working with young people, and she has always been fascinated at how the two can come together. Just to clarify, she's been at it for 25 years, guys. So without further ado, let me stop this conversation, because it's not about me. It's about Wairimu and wholesomeness, for this space that we talk about, that is entrepreneurship and what we think it's about. Wairimu, please, the floor
Hawaii.
is yours. Nzuri sana.
How are you guys doing? I hope you're all well.
I'll take it from them. Yes, ma'am.
It's awesome. So,
Andrew, before you even continue, I see somebody on the
yes,
chat. Andrew Amadi.
I can see him there.
Andrew, we were talking about you. Sorry, we just have to tell you, we were talking about you, and the interview you also did. Thank you, Andrew Amadi. For those who haven't watched the interview with Andrew Amadi around energy, please go watch it on our socials. We are on socials again, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Um, have I forgotten any other TikTok, for those who really watch? But better yet, we're on YouTube too. So you can find the playlist on YouTube and get to watch all these. So tafadhali, watch that. Yeah, Andrew, thank you for joining us also. Yes, Warimo, you may continue.
Asante sana. So I'm not sure how to do this. Do I introduce myself? Because you already introduced me.
Well, not really.
Yeah.
People need to know who you are,
Okay.
and the
Okay.
madness around you, the good madness. Let me say that.
Fantastic. So, okay, like you said, I'm now a yoga teacher. I started off as as a psychiatric nurse, and I trained and practiced with the NHS in England, and moved away from that because I think the admin side of things got a bit boring for me, or monotonous, I should say. And I really felt that I wasn't doing what it is that I'd joined the profession to do, which was actually exploring issues with the patients or the clients. And so I kind of left working in hospitals. I've worked with young children who've been excluded from full-time school because of behavioral challenges. I've worked with probation, with London probation, delivering or facilitating different programs, which ranged from kind of working with prolific petty criminals to using people who are drink driving, or what was known as aggressive aggression. Goodness, it's gone art. it will come back to me. And, but it
Okay.
has to do with anger issues. And all that was kind of based on what's known as cognitive behavioral therapy, which I thoroughly enjoyed because it really, what it does is it tells us how our thoughts and our behavior and our feelings are all connected. So, for example, if I wake up in a bad mood, my behavior may be slamming doors in the morning. My feeling will be, I'll be feeling sad, or I'll be feeling angry, or I'll be feeling not in a good place. But if I wake up happy, I'm greeting everybody in the morning, I'm offering to make tea, I'm feeling happy. So all these three things are really connected. And it's about being so mindful about where your thoughts, what are my behaviors, what are my feelings, and then adjusting that. And I know there was a bit that you had asked about mindfulness and what mindfulness means, especially for entrepreneurs, and we'll get into that. But cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of the base of mindfulness. This is where these things like mindfulness and acceptance, commitment theory all kind of sprung up from. But yeah, so yeah, yoga became big for me because not only did it teach me things about myself that I had kind of assumed. So, for example, I used to say, I doubt I can never meditate. I mean, your mind has to be still, and I've got a mind, and my mind never sits still. And then I found out that actually our mind never is. It kind of, our mind is only still when we're dead. if you're
Are you saying that
alive-
men have the nothing box?
sorry.
Are you saying men don't have the proverbial nothing box?
That's it's such a myth, like so many other things that men are telling us about themselves. There's nothing like not thinking. Here's the thing, and I don't even think it's about the men are not thinking anything. It's just that I think we've come to a place where sometimes when we ask, what we females will ask, what are you thinking? And if you say, actually, I was thinking about how red the pasta, the tomato in the pasta looked today, we'll be like, well, no, actually, that we won't accept that as what you're thinking about, because we're consistently expecting something profound. And this is the whole women from Venus and men are from Mars, I guess. But
Interesting.
yeah, no, there's nothing like an empty brain. There's nothing
Hmm.
like an empty brain. There's always something happening. There's
No,
always something
but
happening.
Wairimu, even minus that, please tell us your background. Like, how was you growing up? Where did you come from? So that you actually even have ventured, better yet, into
Yeah,
the things that you ventured into. Why
right,
and how have you gone into such spaces?
right. So, very
What shaped
liberal
you? Who shaped you?
parents, very, very liberal parents. So parents who were very. I mean, I was born in 1974. I know I don't look it, but I was born in in 1974 to a doctor. And my mom was actually an entrepreneur. Actually, she was one of the first women to own an estate agent in Kenya, right? She before that she was a nun. My parents eloped. They didn't have the big ceremony and everything like that. So that's my background. My parents have also always been very open with me and my brother. Never hid when we asked questions, they answered them age appropriately. So whether it was about where do babies come from, not I I never, there's not a time that I heard my parents calling private parts anything but their name. So that's kind of the background I came from. My parents divorced when I was quite young, and we remained with my father. So my father was a single parent or primary care parent in the 70s before it was even heard of. And so that's kind of my background. Uh, my grandparents also quite strong characters. So yeah, so I think I come from quite an interesting background, and that's kind of shaped who I am and how I think. My parents weren't religious at all. um, like I mentioned earlier when we were having a conversation, we were never baptized. My parents refused to baptize us because they said they'd never heard or seen a white person with a Kikuyu name. So why should they give us English names? So that never happened, and religion was never big in our family. So, I'm one who has gone into many arguments because of religion, but I've also learned a lot from people who are religious. I know Andrew is probably sitting there with his jaw on the ground for me saying that, but yeah. So then yoga, for me, yoga, it started off as something for fitness. So, the postures, the asanas. But yoga is so much more than just the movements. Yoga is about mindfulness. Yoga is about breathing. Yoga is about it's not a religion. A lot of people think it's a religion. Now, like I mentioned, I am not religious in any which way. So, if it was religious, I don't think I'd have found it. But it is something that has changed the way I think and the way I live. And I think it's something that's really, really growing in Kenya. And I'm saying that because of the Lamu Yoga Festival. I mean, the first year we had the Lamu Yoga Festival, maybe 100 people came. Last year, there were over 2,000 people who attended the festival. So it's growing. And people are actually seeing the benefits of yoga. But yeah, in a
Nice.
nutshell,
Nice. You have such a rich history. It's pretty interesting. But even before we go into yoga itself,
yeah.
why did you choose to get even into the space of mental wellness? And even you, because you actually were part of choosing the topic around wholesome wellness and
Yeah.
health
Yeah.
for entrepreneurs. Why
Yeah.
was that such a move for you?
I've always been interested in how the brain works. Like what makes us tick. For me, it's not the heart, it's not to do what I think. For me, what makes us tick is the way we think. I'm always telling people our brain, I'll sit there and hear something. The last few days or the last week has been quite an eye opener when it comes to the news and the different stories we've been hearing about DJs and all this, and just sitting there and thinking, at one point, this person was this young child who never in a million years would anyone have thought that years later he'd be sitting watching something happen that has the whole country or many people in the country up in arms. So how does this person come from this cute, innocent child who was playing football in the field or whatever to this person who we've got so much to say about what the whether it's morals or the legality of it or whatever. How does a person come from here to this place? And that has always fascinated me in the way our brains work. One of the key pieces of work that I do with a lot of my clients is based around what's known as attachment style. Now, each of us has an attachment style, and our attachment style comes directly from our primary caregivers. So whether it's our mother, our father, our parents, whether it's a grandmother who raised you, it comes directly from there. There are 4 different types of attachment styles. There's secure, which is where we all want to be. This is a place where your relationships are a zen place to be. You're happy being alone. You're happy being in a relationship. You're comfortable when your partner is not calling you. It's a healthy place to be. Then you've got what's known as the anxious preoccupied. Now, the anxious space is where you're very clingy or very needy. So you're constantly texting for validation from your partner, or you're constantly expecting to be abandoned by whether it's your partner or friends, and then your behavior becomes a certain way. Because if I'm consistently thinking that I'm going to be abandoned, I will become clingy. If I text you and you don't text back, instead of me thinking, WhatsApp has created so many issues, this blue ticking thing. If someone is anxious, preoccupied, and they tick they send a text and they see that someone has actually seen the text, and they don't reply, whether it's immediately or within the hour, or the first thought is panic of, you see, what I thought was going to happen, I'm being abandoned. So what does my behavior become? I start, hey, have you seen my text? Or I start calling you, instead of thinking, actually, maybe they're busy at work. Maybe they're driving. Maybe the first thing is that idea of being abandoned, right? So that's the anxious, preoccupied. Then we've got what's known as the dismissive. Now, the dismissive are these people who are extremely hyper independent. So they don't want help from anyone. So, maybe months later, you'll be sitting with your friend and they say, hey, you remember that time 3 months ago, and you're asking me what was wrong with you? Let me tell you, I didn't have even money for food. But they cannot ask for help, and that's just because of their attachment style. And again, like I mentioned, it comes for each style. There's a reason for the style. The last one is what's known as a fearful avoidant. Now, the fearful avoidant swings between the dismissive and the anxious. Now, if a fearful dismissive is dating an anxious person, they will be dismissive. If they're dating a dismissive person, they're then in turn anxious. But they swing between wanting closeness and fear of that closeness. Now, people who are fearful, who have the fearful avoidant attachment style, are raised in very chaotic, unsafe households, where there's no, anything could happen. And we know families like this, or friends we've heard of, or even families we grew up in. One minute you're laughing with a parent or whatever, and the next minute, boom, you're in trouble. And you have no idea how this laughter came to this anger, right? That atmosphere creates this fearful avoidant, fearful, disorganized attachment style. There is a way to heal it. There's a brilliant news about it. There is a way to heal these attachment styles and move closer to the secure style, right? But you have to be aware of what your attachment style is. You have to be aware of what your core wounds are. And core wounds are created because of maybe the different traumas you've been through. So, for example, if you grew up consistently being told you're stupid, every time you made a mistake, there'd be a huge thing made out of it. As a child, you wouldn't do it consciously, but in your childlike mind, you'll say, okay, every time I make a mistake, I get into trouble. So what I'm going to do is I'll try not to make mistakes, or I won't make mistakes. It's impossible not to make mistakes. Even at my big age, I make mistakes because that's what life is. If I'm learning something new, I'm going to make mistakes. But you see, if that is the limited belief that I have, that I'm not going to make mistakes, it becomes difficult for me to live life, because every time I make mistakes, I then go back to that voice as the parent telling me, you see, you're this, you see, you're the other. And so it confirms this opinion from my parent that actually I'm stupid, or I consistently make mistakes. Whereas again, and the reason I called it an opinion is it is an opinion. It's not a fact, right? One of the ways we start healing is by challenging that negative voice, being
Wow.
aware of it, and then challenging it.
Good. You've actually gone to my next question.
Yeah.
How do you even identify that there's something off?
Now,
Because I mean, if you walk through the streets of Nairobi,
yeah,
just case in point,
yeah,
there are so many people suffering from mental health issues.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I can assure you,
yeah.
nearly 60, 70, 80, even 90%
Yeah.
don't even know there's a problem with them.
Absolutely. Let me give you an example. Imagine, go back to your school days, right? Think of a teacher that you really, really like, because now I'm going to tell you about perception and what our perceptions are, and I'll explain why I'm talking about perception. Think of a teacher you really, really liked and one you didn't like. Now, you haven't done their work in either. So there's a project both teachers have given, you haven't done it. Teacher you like comes and tells you, I'm really disappointed in you. I thought, I thought you knew better. I thought you'd have been able to do this piece of work that I've given you. I'm really disappointed in you. Teacher you don't like comes and uses exactly the same words. What are your feelings towards the teacher you like? What are your feelings towards the teacher you don't like? Wahiga, I'm asking you specifically, what would your feelings be?
First, I'm even confused by the scenario. I'm like, oh my Lord. But I'll definitely have things going on.
Absolutely, because the teacher you don't like, the teacher you like, you'd feel really bad that you didn't do it. You'd feel a certain type of way. You'd probably rush to go and do it. The teacher you didn't like, you'd probably sit there and say, you see this person, they're always picking on me. They always did, because of your perception of the two. The one you like, you take it easier. The one you don't like, you look at it in a negative point of view. Now, perception of mental health. Our perception of mental health as a country is wanting, right?
Are you being kind with your words?
I've been told I'm not diplomatic. This is why I didn't go into the diplomatic circles. I've never been accused of being diplomatic, but no. So it has, because here's the thing, and we're suffering for it, right? Because we have someone who maybe has a mental health illness, and instead of being taken to see a mental health professional, they're taken to church, or they're told it's the neighbor's jealous because you did so well in your exam, or your child did so well in your exam, so umerogwa. So then you don't get the help that you need to get. But also the stigma that's around it. You don't want to speak about mental health because of the stigma. Already there's such a stigma that it's easier to keep quiet. And whether it's depression, let's talk about depression. We know depression is this dark, deep hole that you can't see outside of. All you want to do is stay in your house, curtains drawn, in your bed, you don't want to eat, you're barely sleeping, or depending on what kind of depression you have, the symptoms may be different. But it is this way. Now, someone comes and says, especially men, comes and says, I'm depressed. What happens? People don't have a lot of pity. A woman comes and says, I'm depressed. People don't have pity. So you just go and put on some heels and makeup, utaskia poa. Do you know what I mean? Unasikia vibaya kwa nini? You've got money, you've got children, why are you feeling bad? We completely, our perception of mental health is again, like I say, is wanting. So no one wants to admit or even allow or see when someone else is suffering from mental health. And that's a problem. Because then now we don't know what the symptoms are. We're getting burnout. We don't know what the symptoms are. We're getting compassion fatigue. We don't know what the symptoms are. Or if we see them, we ignore them. But then now here's the thing. And if I was to connect it to entrepreneurs, if you get ill, if you say, for example, you get compassion fatigue or you get burnout, there's not something that will sort itself out in a week that you'll be back to normal. It could take months on months for you to heal and get back to normal. What does that do to your business?
Wow.
Right?
That's the question also.
Absolutely.
Like, if it happened to me, what exactly do you expect?
Right. So we have to be so aware of these things. We have to be self-care is such an important thing. Whether it's meditation, whether it's breathing, even breathing exercises, the one thing we have with us is our breath. That's the one thing we have with us. It's free. You can do it anywhere. When you find you're getting nervous or you're getting anxious, and here's the thing I've heard from a lot of business people, especially during COVID, a number of my friends who have businesses were wondering why they're starting to get panic attacks or wondering why they're feeling a certain type of way. Now, if I'm sitting there and a country has been locked down and my business, my daily bread comes from actually being out there, my mental health is going to be affected
You
because I'll
directly.
start thinking, what if I can't do this? What happens if I can't pay my rent? I'll be kicked out. What happens if me and my family are kicked out? We'll be da da da. And the what ifs keep going, and the anxiety keeps doing what? Rising.
So, how do you identify this? How do you even identify that you're at
That
not a good place?
it can be your eating habit has changed. Maybe you're finding you're snapping at people more than usual. Your sleeping habits have changed. Maybe you're drinking more than usual. Maybe you're now taking harder drugs. And by the way, I I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I think legalization of marijuana needs to happen. Medicinal. But
Conversation for another day, definitely.
absolutely for another day. But kind of these things that these changes that you're seeing. So you're going through a whole day or 2 days, and you look back and you think, "Hiya, I haven't eaten since yesterday breakfast. What is happening? I'm not sleeping, or I'm sleeping too much. What is happening?" But you have to be so aware of who you are. So, for example, doing a body scan, I always advocate doing body scans. And what is a body scan? A body scan is when I'm angry, where do I feel the anger? Do I feel my throat constricting? Is it my chest that starts constricting? Does my heart beat faster? What happens? Being aware of those things, once that starts happening, I catch myself and I know, hold on, I'm getting angry. I stop myself. What is it that I'm getting angry about? What is it about this situation? Or what is it that I've thought that has brought me to this place? What is it that I feel when I'm sad? Do I isolate myself? When you start seeing yourself isolating, you just question yourself, what is happening for me? But also having conversations with your loved ones. Your loved ones are the ones, your children. Hey, lakini daddy, you've stopped talking to us, sana. Hey, lakini siku hizi you make a lot of noise. You're consistently shouting or you're very angry. Actually listening, and this is not the other problem. We don't listen to our children. They catch on very quickly.
Is that an African thing? Or it's
Largely,
spread across because
largely,
you've lived in two
largely,
different worlds.
largely,
Why is
largely.
that? Why would you think that is the case?
I think it has to do with, and people will start calling me biased, between religion and culture. Those two things have a great deal to answer. When we talk about the rod, what's the name? Sparing the rod. There's a
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
right, or children shouldn't be heard, or this idea that you can't learn from children, and because I'm the adult and I said so. I'll tell you something. I was writing a report the other day, and my daughter, she's 11, and was asking me, to hang out with her. And I was saying to her, I've got this report up. It's so important, and all these figures. And she said to me, Mama, if you what is it? Highlight this and put it on this Excel sheet. And if you do, you'll cut your work in half. And at first I wasn't paying attention to her. Then I did it. And I was like, I've been wasting a whole hour doing something that literally I could have done. It has changed me, but it's because I listened. If I hadn't listened to her, I'd still be doing the nonsense I was doing. But we have to accept that we can learn from children. Think about it. When we were young and we're telling our parents about the video recorder because they didn't know, where do I press? And we tell them, press here. And we knew stuff and we'd try and tell our parents and they wouldn't listen. How did that make you feel? Why would we want to repeat the same pattern with our kids? Our kids have a lot to teach us, a lot to teach us. So we have
Wow.
to listen to them. They live with us. They know us. They know when
Okay.
something has changed.
Great. How can entrepreneurs incorporate mindfulness practices into their daily routine
It
to
has to be
improve?
so intentional. It has to be so intentional. And whether it's saying, I'm going to do a breathing exercise every morning when I wake up, or the body scan, like I'm saying, and the body scan is about you start off with your head. Is there any tension in my jaw? Is there any tension in my brow? Am I kunjaing my face like this? And just going down, am I tense in my neck? Are my shoulders tense? And every step that you're going, if it is tense, relax it. If it is tense, relax it. And just doing that, even 5 minutes of that in the morning or 5 minutes of that in the evening, will get you thinking, okay, well, why am I tense today? What is it that has happened in my day that has made me tense? Then you're creating that awareness where you're able to catch this before it gets to this point where this mess where your jaws is tight, your shoulders are tight. And here's the thing, we hear people saying, hey, I've got a headache and I don't even know where this headache is coming from. If you've spent your whole day with your shoulders tight and your jaw clenched, you're going to get a headache. Think about it. If you're like this, that's not natural. So the tension is going to create a headache. So it's about being really aware of these things. Then the breathing exercises really brings down the anxiety. So when you're anxious, stop. You can do it anywhere. Inhale for 4. So inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then exhale for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can do that 10 times. And I promise you, the difference will be amazing. Will be amazing. But another thing I always tell people is journal. You have to journal. You've got to journal. And journaling doesn't mean writing paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff. You can even draw. If you're having a bad day, draw a cloud that's raining. If you're having a good day or you've had a good day, draw a sun with a smile, like we used to draw in nursery. You'll know what that means. And then in a month, you look back in your journal and see how many happy days you've had or how many angry days you've had. Then you question yourself, why have I been angry 17 days of what is happening for me? But you have the awareness comes first, and there are different ways to create that awareness. That's what comes first, right? And the self-care, you have to have self-care. Go get a
So
pedicure done.
that's interesting. So you've talked about being intentional,
Yeah,
journaling, and self-care.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. If you are Gen Z, if you didn't tell us when you were born,
I
we would
know.
have called you Gen Z actually.
I'm telling you, they've actually, Gen Z are the guys who are going to crack this thing called life.
Wow. Oh,
Because,
wow.
like I said, they're so intentional. I'll tell you, my clientele, 80% of them are Gen Z between 19 and 25. They're so intentional about their mental health. They're so intentional about breaking generational trauma. So intentional. And they're so aware of it. Right. And we all have generational trauma, whether we admit it or not. We always say, we've heard people saying, me, I was beaten as a child and I'm okay. But are you okay? Are you okay?
Others are
Because
thrown out the window.
that's the thing. I mean, think about it. We're saying, I was beaten, but I'm okay. But when you think about how we display our anger, even as a country, how do we display our anger? we'll go and burn our neighbor's house. That's not okay. Where is that coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? We are angry. We are angry. But we also scared. You know, when I came back from England, driving in Kenya is an experience. It's an experience and a half.
Welcome
And
back.
I came back, I came up with this theory that we're very scared to be alone with our thoughts, even when we're driving. So we are here. There's no braking distance. Tunakwanga hapa on top of each other. In a line in the supermarket, tuko hapa. Next, you'll still be served by the cashier, but you want to be here. We do not. We have very porous boundaries or very rigid. A lot of the times we don't have healthy boundaries, which is a problem.
What are boundaries exactly?
Now, I'm glad you asked. Glad you asked. Boundaries, and by then there are very many different types of boundaries. Huh?
Yep.
There's intellectual, there's time, there's and by time I mean overworking. So my boss, my contract says 5 to 8, but my boss expects me to be there till 9 every day.
And that's if
That
you're
is
lucky.
my boundary is not being respected.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's the boundaries of physical boundary, where if I say no, or I say you're too close to me, respect that. Right? There's financial boundaries. If I don't have the money, I don't have the money. So a friend comes and tells you, Aki Ohegas, you just give me a soft loan for, and you say no, but I can't accept that no. So you ask a friend of yours to loan you, and then you loan me in Takulipa. I've already said no. Why should I borrow from someone else? Do you know what I mean? So there are very many boundaries, and boundaries have to be, they don't have to be rigid. You can't be rigid. Boundaries are consistently moving, but you name your boundaries. No one else can say what your boundaries are. Right? But we have to start learning how to respect each other's boundaries. We don't respect each other's boundaries. We're very also our boundaries can be very porous. Think about, okay, I'll give you an example. When you're a kid, or even now, think about some children or kids you've met or seen, and then they're with parents, they go to meet new people, and the kid doesn't want to say hello to a certain person. Then you start calling them rude. Kwa nini unakataa kusalamia uncle so and so? Kwa nini? We are teaching kids that they have to be. Kids have instinct. Here's the thing: when we are born, we are born with instincts. As we grow older, we override our instincts. We teach kids to override their instincts, which again is not good.
A problem by itself.
It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem, because then at a certain age, we're wondering how come they're not self-reliant. But we haven't allowed them to be.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
So completely, and it's interesting how you've broached into that topic. Are there, and I think you know that, and it's one of the things you mentioned. Are there any common misconceptions that you've noticed about what people say about yoga, and also how it can benefit entrepreneurs?
Yeah, we've got the misconception. Number one, the one I mentioned, that it's a religion. It isn't a religion. Yoga, explained very simply, is a union between the body and the mind, a balance between the body and the mind. That's literally what yoga is. So that encompasses the mindfulness we're talking about. It encompasses the breathing that we're talking about, because breathing can help with our anxiety. Breathing can help in very many different ways. It encompasses the asanas, the movements that we do, and that's a health side of it. Flexibility, strength, all these different things. But the biggest misconception is that it's a religion. It isn't a religion. It really, you've got Catholics, priests who practice yoga. You've got
Interesting.
Muslims who practice yoga. It isn't a religion. So you can be whatever religion you are, but still practice mindfulness, still practice physical fitness, still practice breathing exercises, still practice meditation.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's yoga in a nutshell.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what are the benefits? What are the benefits?
Again, better sleep, flexibility, strength, mindfulness, being aware of who you are, being mindful. So being living in the present. We do a lot of living in the past or living in the future, right? And then so we then miss what is actually happening in the here and now. Because if I'm too busy worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, I'm missing everything that's happening here, which actually could benefit me in that tomorrow that I'm worrying about. Because I
Hmm.
might see a deal I might not have seen because I was busy thinking about that other thing huko. So it's really, yeah. So that's part of kind of the benefits of yoga, health
Okay.
wise.
So let me pick something from Amadou. He just mentioned. He
Yeah.
was saying the world of enterprise and work is now cognitive. Even
The what?
manufacturing,
Sorry.
the world of enterprise and work is now cognitive. Even manufacturing is now done by robots and automation, and the role of the human mind is making decisions and choices in a world with much more options that have never been. This creates cognitive dissonance. Productivity today is not a function of effort, but clarity. A clouded mind cannot make rational decisions.
Correct.
With cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
and that's a big one, I think I'll let you talk about that.
CBT.
Cognition, yes,
We spoke
cognition,
about it already. Why you guys are
yes.
not listening in class?
No, I didn't know that's the word. First, I'm like, whoa, big word. Words
Yeah.
dropped.
Uh-huh.
You made it simpler to understand what that is.
Yeah.
So, cognitive behavioral therapy, as you've said, CBT, cognition works across the board. There is no life work balance for an entrepreneur. Even at 3 a.m., they will be working. Entrepreneurs need to be proactive at good mental hygiene, regardless of if there is a diagnosed mental health condition or not. What are your comments on that actually before we continue?
My comments on what Andrea said. Now,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
those people, different learning styles as well. Eh? There are those
Minus being
people
a
who,
fan of Andrew, by the way.
but I know, right? I know. No, let me read it. I'm those people who has to read myself
That's
for
okay.
me to get it.
That's okay.
Yeah. So let me just read.
No
So the
worries.
world of enterprise and work is not cognitive, absolutely. Even manufacturing is done by robots. Mhm. This creates cognitive dissonance. Productivity today is not a function of effort, but clarity. A clouded mind cannot make rational decisions. With CBT, cognition works across the board. There is no work life balance for an entrepreneur. Even at 3 a.m., they will be working. Entrepreneurs need to be proactive, good mental
Hygiene.
hygiene, regardless. Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, one of these fine days, I'd love to come on there with Andrew Amadi. We've had many conversations around this. And one of them, Andrew has a very amazing way of how he keeps um, track of what needs to be kept track of in his life. And I think that's part of being cognitive. Again, awareness, being aware of what your thoughts are, being aware of what your behavior is, being aware of what your feelings are, right? If I come to a meeting angry, how much clarity will I have? How open am I to listening to what this other person has to say? My mind, again, like I was saying, my mind will be hukombele and not here in the present.
Mhm.
If I come and I'm anxious, right? I'll tell you something. Anytime I'm going into a meeting and I'm really anxious, I always do a breathing exercise. And it works because breathing, inhaling deeply and exhaling deeply, is telling our brain whatever danger it is we think is there is not there. Right? It's actually it's very scientific. It has to do with the nervous system. Breathing calms the nervous system down. So if I'm anxious and I go into a meeting, the way I'll act in that meeting would be very different from if I went in there with little or no anxiety. The decisions I'll make in that meeting will be very different from if I'm anxious or I've got clarity of mind. So the awareness, I keep harping on about awareness, but awareness is such a big, big one. It's a big one.
And it's necessary.
Absolutely, it's necessary.
No.
And in all aspects of our life, home life, work life, we have to be aware.
Nice. Nice. How, actually, in what ways can wholesome health and wellness improve on an entrepreneur's productivity and focus?
Sorry, just repeat that question
In
again.
what ways can
Yeah.
having a wholesome health and wellness regimen improve an
Yeah.
entrepreneur's productivity and focus?
Now we come to the clarity Andrew was speaking about. That's how we get now to the clarity. If I've got clarity, then I'll be able to catch the things I'm going to catch. I'll be able to catch that my employee is not their normal self. I'll be able to catch that so and so is acting out of character, and why. I'll be able to be mindful enough to ask what is happening before everything, the proverbial whatever, hits the fan. Because of clarity, I'll have caught it. Because of mindfulness, I'll have caught it.
And is it important for entrepreneurs to have clear minds?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm not an entrepreneur. I was not built to be an entrepreneur. But here's the thing: think about a time when a deal has gone horribly wrong, and you've reflected on it. And reflecting means asking questions like, what went wrong? What was the situation? What was my mood? What could I have done differently? What do you know? All those questions, right? And when that same deal or a deal similar to that has gone right, what has been the difference? Your awareness of where you are, your perception of what is happening in the deal, right? Clarity as to what is happening, what is this person offering me, and what am I offering? What is it I want from this deal? You have to have that mental wellness. And again, we go back to the self-care, right? And self-care could be anything, to listening to some good music, to taking a walk in Karura, do you know what I mean? Just something that you're spending for yourself without additional background makelele, right? Something you're enjoying for yourself. You're 10 minutes of your day for you, and it's so important to do that. And whether you do it in the morning or you do it in the evening, you have to have time for you every day. Right? The same way we say, and people will say, but how can I do that every day? The same way you brush your teeth every day. The same way there's some things there's this thing called habit stacking. And what habit stacking is, learning a new habit. So if I want to say, for example, I want to learn this thing of taking 5 minutes per day for myself. What I say is, every morning when I wake up, I go to the toilet, I brush my teeth, then I come back to the bedroom, or I shower, don't know, whatever, come back to the bedroom, and I make my bed. I do that every day. What you then do is you do your brushing of your teeth. The new habit you want to form, you put it between the brushing the teeth and the making the bed. But also you have to be intentional. It has to be intentional. Now they say that it takes 21 days to form a habit. I think it takes longer, but you have to be intentional about this. You put something between two things that you already do, it's more likely that you're going to start doing it quicker than if you just say, I'll do it at some point in the day. That some
But
point never fikas.
but even picking up on what Andrew has said,
Yeah,
the life of an entrepreneur,
yeah,
how can entrepreneurs really balance the demands of running a business with
yeah.
maintaining a healthy work-life balance? Is there even anything like that?
Again, we're back to the intentional. You're back to that. What do you want? What is it that you as an entrepreneur want, right? What you want. By the way, you as an entrepreneur, and what I don't know, Andy as an entrepreneur needs or wants is going to be very different. So I can't say, no, Andrew jogs every morning, I'm going to do that. That may not be what I need. What I need may be meditation. What I need may be a yoga practice. What I may need is that 10 minutes in the morning when no one is awake, it's just me and my silence. But it has to be intentional. It doesn't just happen. You have to be intentional about it. Because if it just happened, then we would not be having this conversation. Right?
Yeah. Can you discuss the connection between physical health and mental well-being when it comes to entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So imagine that you have COVID. Now, COVID, a number of people, entrepreneurs, were not able to go to work, which equals not making money or not being able to feed your family or not being able to feed. That could lead to anxiety, could lead to depression, to mood disorders, right? So you have to be physically well to be mentally well, right? If I'm not able to feed my family because of this physical illness, or I'm not able to do something that I need to do because of this physical illness, I'll start worrying. Worrying could lead to anxiety. Anxiety could lead to depression. The two are very closely linked, anxiety and depression, right? They say that when you exercise, it releases healthy chemicals in your brain, but also it's just good. Do you know what I mean? A brisk walk, half-hour walk, or 15-minute walk, or whatever. One of the things we used to tell people in, people who work in maybe the offices or whatever, would say to them, on your lunch break, instead of sitting at the desk eating your lunch, walk somewhere and eat your lunch there. Because that might be the only exercise that you do. But it's physical. But again, it has to be intentional. I can't mention the word intentional enough because it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. You have to decide, I'm going to do this, and you have to be intentional about doing it. And then also creating goals that are actually achievable. You've heard of SMARTer: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bound.
Yes, I'm listening.
Right. So, for example, if I say that, what time is it now? It's 5. If I say I want to get to Lamu by 6 p.m., it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because it's not realistic, right? So it has to be. So if I say to myself, Nemo said that we should journal or whatever, then you say, I'll journal from now and I'm going to journal every morning for at least 10 minutes. Apana, just say, I'll journal once a week. And I'll build from there. Be realistic about it. Be realistic about the goals. Because when we don't achieve the goals, then we start having those negative thoughts of, I knew I'm not good at doing, I knew I was rubbish anyway, or I knew I was not going to do it anyway. But if you're realistic about it and you say, I'll do 10 minutes journaling once a week, and I'll do it on Monday at this time, chances are you'll be able to build a habit sooner because you're being intentional about it.
Good, good, good. As we're wrapping up, as we're coming to wrap up this section, as a mental health therapist and yoga teacher, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are dealing with burnout and need to find ways to recharge? And this could be burnout, fatigue, all those things, but really get to entrepreneurs.
Burnout fatigue, you imagine you have to take time out. And that's why you have to catch it before it happens. You can't heal while you're still pushing yourself, because the reason you're in that position is because you've been pushing yourself. So you have to be aware of what is too much. You have to be able, whether, and I guess entrepreneurs, how comfortable are they with, say, delegating or being vulnerable or saying, I can't do this or I'm not able to do this? Kind of knowing your limits, I guess, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Good.
But again, back to awareness, back to intentional.
Intentionality.
That is the takeaway from today. Intentional awareness. Awareness, intentional.
Can you share any success stories or examples of entrepreneurs that you might know or not
So
know?
actually, yes, a very good friend of mine has a friend who, they introduced me, and they do digital work on contract and stuff like that. And they were getting to a point where they were not enjoying their work. They didn't know how to say no. So again, we're back to boundaries. They felt bad when they said no. And so we started having the conversation around, how do you now start creating your boundaries? How do you start getting people to respect? First of all, how do you start respecting your own boundaries so that other people can see, actually, this person has a boundary, and I can't keep asking them to do this, and they've said they can't, right? That was the first conversation we had. Then we had the idea of, I have to do this. I have to do that. Apana, you don't have to. Perception, hierarchy of goals. Which one is the most important? Which one can I get away with not doing? Which one do I have to do? Again, being very intentional. That's what he did. And by the way, I was going to play his message where he was saying, kind of thanking me for kind of the conversations that we had. But I thought maybe he might be on here, or someone might hear his voice and know. And there's nothing called patient confidentiality. But he said that he now, there's more clarity, which means he's now making more money than he was before, because he's being intentional about the things he's saying yes to and the things he's saying no to. He's not just saying yes to everything and then feeling overwhelmed.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. How can entrepreneurs find a wellness practice that fits their individual needs and lifestyle?
And now that they have to figure out what it is what do they like? What do they like? Do they like, are you someone who holidays, for example, there are people who want to go on a hiking holiday, where someone else, that would be an absolute nightmare, or that would be, do you know what I mean? So you have to first know what it is you like. Just because so and so likes I don't know, taking walks in Karura, you might hate it. Maybe for you it's about having a good book, or even cooking. By the way, things like, people laugh when I say things like washing dishes or ironing is meditation. When you're actually focused on the task you're doing, how does this water feel in my hands? What does the soap feel like? What do the dishes feel like? Being very in the present moment. These kind of things are the things that are going to be helpful, including they come under self-care. But you have to know what it is you enjoy to be able to figure out then now what's the next step. What do I find relaxing? Right? And there are many clubs. There's yoga, there's different types of yoga. There's
Oh,
what oh, absolutely. There's one that I was conducting a while ago called Yoga Nidra, and Yoga Nidra translates into deep sleep. So basically, what happens is I'm talking, you're reclined, and I'm guiding you through images. By the end of it, you're feeling very relaxed or you've slept. So there are different spaces where you can find these wellness things going on.
okay, good. What's your takeaway from all this? Your closing statement.
My closing statement: go to therapy. Everyone needs a therapist. Everyone needs a therapist, and not at every week, but
Uh,
even if it's every 2 months a check-in, because they'll be able to tell you, listen, you're looking more stressed, or the way, but also you're able to explore what is happening for you with someone who's not judgmental, with someone who's not biased, with someone who is helping you explore whatever issues. But everybody needs a therapist. And having a therapist doesn't mean you're mad or you're this or you're the other. It means you're looking after your mental health.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Asante.
Thank you so
Asante sana.
much.
Yeah.
like, like, I mean, for those who didn't know, Wairimu is also in the business of helping people deal with uncomfortable emotions,
Very.
thoughts, or physical sensations as they arise.
Absolutely.
Very skilled. How can people reach out to you?
My email address, Nine Horizons, Kenya. So nine, the number, then Horizons, HORIZONS, gmail.com, or WhatsApp me on 0728 290 039.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Wairimu.
Thank
That
you, Wahiga, for
that
having
is
me on here.
thank you. Asante. Asante, I'm more honored. Ladies and gentlemen, we had Wairimu Githahu, mental health therapist and registered yoga teacher, on today's show of Let's Create Africa. Courtesy of Let's Create Africa, an entrepreneur support organization leveraging on PR, comms, and media. Also, courtesy of Know Your Rights Africa, which is a civic and citizen participation platform. The Future of Work, which is a jobs platform for those who are seeking jobs. That's also a good platform to go check out. On Statinev, who have also been our partner all through this work, are an innovations ecosystem enabler. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Ohiga K. Muturi, and this is Let's Create Africa webinar, where we were talking about business innovation, governance, and the SDGs. Actually, that's what we forgot to talk about, Wairimu.
What's that?
What is your comment on SDGs and how it applies to Africans?
On SDGs.
Yes, the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh, aha. We need to become serious with that. I mean, we've moved so far away from those those cultural practices. I mean, there was a time we lived side by side with the animals that we are not trying to poach. There was a time we grew food that was enough food for ourselves, like organic food for ourselves, which again goes to wellness. Organic food, a kitchen garden. By the way, I tell everyone should have a kitchen garden, and you don't to have a garden to have a kitchen garden. Do you know what I mean? Growing herbs, growing that kind of thing. But my what is it called? My knowledge on SDGs isn't that as advanced. So I might be what's the word? Flustered, not flustered. There's a word. I'm nattering on.
No, okay. And do you think they're relevant to Africa as a
Absolutely,
continent and Africans as a
absolutely,
people?
absolutely, absolutely. Well, it must, because we need to ask ourselves why everyone else is busy asking us to cut down our trees and sell them to them. What is it they know that we don't know? Do you know what I mean? We need to start asking ourselves these questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now I officially bring this to an end. My name is Wahiga K. Muturi, and this is the Let's Create Africa webinar. A last comment, I see a comment from somebody. Amadou, let me ask ChatGPT to make a rhyme to remember the SDGs. Wow, you had to go there. Andrew Amadi at his best. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our show today. My name is Wahiga K. Muturi, and this is Let's Create Africa, the webinar, talking about business innovation, governance, and the SDGs. Have a good night, or rather, good evening. God bless you all. Thank you.